You're in violation, and I'm calling 911. That's how Dorothy, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, greeted me the very first time I parked my battered Honda Civic in my grandparents' Lakeside driveway, just 3 inches off her arbitrary curb rule. I come back to this old cabin, craving some peace after getting my life torn to shreds for blowing the whistle on my corrupt boss. Thought I could finally breathe, maybe heal up a little. Instead, within 6 minutes, a furious HOA president, a growing stack of fines, and a looming threat of public shaming nearly crushed me. But what Dorothy didn't know was that her angry 911 call would trigger a chain of events that would end her 25-year empire, not with a bang, but with the truth. Yeah, that happened. If you've ever faced an HOA Karen, you know exactly what I mean. I'll never forget the first moment I stepped out of that car, cardboard box in hand, my grandparents' photo inside, thinking I'd found sanctuary. The air was all pine and lake water, the kind of place that used to mean freedom. 5 minutes later, my world spun, not because of some friendly neighbor, but because Dorothy showed up pounding on the door like she was leading a SWAT raid. There she was, mid-50s, lavender blazer, starched to a crisp, measuring tape in one hand, leather-bound violation notebook in the other. I'm Dorothy Mitchell, HOA president. I make the rules, and you're already in violation. Before I could say a word, she bulldozed past me, measured my car-to-curb distance, called out, 3.2 feet, $50 fine, and kept going. My car was an eyesore, my work clothes unacceptable, and she even knelt to measure the grass blade by blade, finding it a whopping 0.2 inches too high, another $50. She handed me a 200-page rule book with the subtlety of a court summons and hissed, "People like you don't fit in Lakeside. But don't worry, I'll help you adapt." It didn't sound like help. It sounded like a villain's threat. Behind her, a guy I'd later know as Richard was filming the whole thing. And when a woman my age, Linda, walked past, Dorothy noted her name too, bragging about the $500 fine she'd given Linda last year for planting the wrong flowers. "I've run this community for 15 years, she crowed, face twisting when she mentioned Bob, something bitter hiding there, quick as a blink. That's when I knew this wasn't just about grass height or curb distance. There was a story here, something raw hiding under Dorothy's mask. And yeah, the next morning proved she wasn't letting up. I tried to mow the grass at sunrise just to avoid her, but she caught me, accused me of destroying protected indigenous vegetation. aka dandelions, wrote up another $200 fine on the spot, and made sure Richard filmed it all. By lunch, my face was posted as Violator of the Month on the community board, and some kid pointed me out to his mom as the bad man. I wasn't just being fined, I was being branded, outcast, shamed. That humiliation, it burns in ways you don't forget. But then, Hope Linda, the nurse who got hit with $500 in fines for marigolds, found me and whispered she did the same thing to me. It's easier to pay than fight. Before I could answer, an old man called out from across the street. "Marcus, isn't it? I knew your grandparents. Come in for tea." That's how I met Harold, who'd lived in Lakeside since before the HOA ever existed. In his living room, walls lined with photos from before Dorothy's regime, he dropped the first bombshell. Did Dorothy mention Bob? Yes, she did. He was the original president, charming, but one day vanished with the HOA secretary and the money. Dorothy just took over. No election. She made this her kingdom. But here's the kicker: Harold, along with several others, never signed the original HOA papers. Bob claimed he had enough signatures, but some of those people were dead by then. The idea that the whole HOA was built on forged documents, it was too wild to believe, but not wild enough to dismiss. I was tempted to run after 3 months fighting a corrupt boss. Did I really want another war? But I remember my granddad's words, "Never let anyone run you off your own land." So I headed to the county records office, found Linda there too, and we dove into dusty archives, with help from Stan the clerk who, as fate would have it, had his own bone to pick after Dorothy fined his wife $1,000 for color harmony violations. 4 hours of legalese later, my hands were shaking as I found the smoking gun. My grandparents' property deed from 1952 with a clause that made their land HOA-proof unless they signed up in writing. And they never did. Stan confirmed it, eyes wide. You're immune, Marcus. They have no power over you. Every fine is monopoly money. It should have been a victory lap, but instead I felt this hollow anger. What about Linda? What about everyone Dorothy had crushed? Stan said that's the thing about shields, they only protect the one holding them. But what if the sword isn't even real? That lit a fuse in me. I went home, deliberately broke half a dozen HOA rules just to see what Dorothy would do. And sure enough, she stormed over with another $1,000 in fines, threatened to put a lien on my property. I just sipped my coffee and told her to read her own rulebook. Every fine you've ever given me is worthless. Her face cycled from red to white to purple. Then she went for her phone, announced she felt unsafe, and was calling the police. Please do, I said, and when the cops showed up, I handed them my county documents. Officer Bradley wasn't buying Dorothy's performance. Ma'am, filing a false police report is a crime. This is your only warning. Richard stopped filming. Dorothy just stood there, trembling. She couldn't make sense of losing control. And that's when I made 6 phone calls in 6 minutes to Stan, to a lawyer, to Linda, to Harold, to every neighbor who'd ever doubted the HOA, even posted in the neighborhood group about missing election records. The fuse was lit. Dorothy was finished, she just didn't know it yet. By dawn, Stan had proof. Dorothy had never been legally elected president. No ballots, no nominations, no votes. All those years, she'd just announced herself as president and ruled by intimidation. And the deeper we dug, the uglier it got. Richard, trying to save his own skin, brought out board meeting recordings. Dorothy had run everything like a dictatorship. Linda built a spreadsheet showing $3,000 in fines from her family alone. Another neighbor told how Dorothy fined her $300 for merely asking about elections. But the real shocker? Harold's notebook. Only 68% of homeowners ever signed on to form the HOA, not the 75% required by law. The missing signatures were from people who'd already died. We found the actual papers at the county office. Margaret, Tom, Bill, Robert, Frank, all dead years before they supposedly signed. The entire HOA was built on forged signatures. At the community meeting that night, the truth came out. The crowd was electric, Dorothy in the front row trembling. I laid out everything. The covenant that protected my property, the absence of any legal election, the $400,000 in illegal fines, the dead people's signatures. Richard and other board members admitted they'd never seen a real election. People shouted out the fines they'd paid, stories of intimidation and shame. Dorothy shrieked, "This is my community!" But for the first time, no one listened. The vote to dissolve the HOA was nearly unanimous. Dorothy sat slumped, mumbling, "My community, this was my community." As I left, I told her, "It was never yours, Dorothy. It belonged to all of us." And with that, 25 years of fear and control were wiped away in a single night. Kids played in yards without worrying about violations. Neighbors started painting their homes bright colors, planting whatever flowers they wanted. I bought Dorothy's perfect house for half its value, turned it into a community garden and gathering place. No rules, no fines, just people. Dorothy disappeared to Arizona, maybe finally learning that respect builds community, not fear. So what does freedom look like after 25 years of petty tyranny? It looks like laughter, like neighbors toasting with cold beers, like no more measuring tapes, no more violator of the month posters. I stood by the lake, raised a glass to my grandparents, and whispered, "Your home is truly free now." Sometimes it takes just 6 minutes and the courage to ask, what's really legal here? To bring down a kingdom built on lies. Now, let's open this up. Have you ever faced an HOA Karen or been caught in a web of community control? Was Dorothy just a villain or another victim of the system? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if you found your whole neighborhood was built on fake rules? And hey, always read the fine print. Sometimes the truth is hiding in plain sight.